Like, what are you expecting them to do for you? Like, what are the other options? Where do you live? Under a rock? Hi friends. I don't know if I look as tired as I feel, but oh my gosh, I am beat. I had a long week this week at work and we are getting ready to travel, and on top of all of that, my husband has not been feeling very well, so we are running on fumes over here. Does anyone here remember being super annoyed? Maybe it's just me because I'm a nerd. But does anyone else here remember being super annoyed by the kid in class, usually the jockey, perfect male, mediocre male, if you will, raising their hand and giving some half-baked answer, clear as day that they did not do their homework? That's the vibe I get from this doctor. Who are we talking about? That's right, the one, the only, Fat Doctor UK. Dr. Asher Laramie is from the UK, and they are a very interesting person. They started their journey as a weight loss blog / I'm not sure if they had other social media at the time. They definitely started with a blog, and they were looking to lose weight, and they even posted in one of those first ever blogs that they really wanted to lose the weight and become a famous weight loss doctor. How did we go from weight loss journey to this?
Fat doesn't put pressure on your heart. People are judging your body every single moment of every single day. Telling a fat person how to respond to fat-phobic comments is the equivalent of telling a black person how to respond to racist comments.
The way Dr. Laramie talks about their story, it is very easy to tell that they have traveled down the same path that many of us who have joined the fat acceptance movement have.
In May 2020, I went on a 1200 calorie a day diet. I too lost a lot of weight, much more than 12 kilograms in fact. But two things happened that made me change the way I think about things and have made me the fat activist that I am today. First of all, it massively damaged my physical and emotional well-being. And second of all, I eventually gained all the weight back. Now, that's not the first time this has happened to me. In fact, I've done it over and over and over again.
They started doing a diet or multiple diets, fad diets created by the diet industry, did not go well for them. They were miserable. They regained the weight, and they were welcomed by this community who told them, hey, look, you don't have to do this, and actually you're going to gain weight. They're not wrong when they mention this and that 95% of diets fail. But honestly, when you listen to their arguments, you can tell the brownies are half-baked. Every time they spew some of their crazy nonsense, it's always lacking critical thinking. Let me provide you a few examples. One of the most prolific fat doctor clips that I have seen from their TikTok is them saying,
The thing is, the world hates us being fat. They would rather we died than remain fat. They would rather we were addicted to medication for the rest of our lives than remain fat.
They would rather we remain addicted to medication for the rest of our lives than remain fat. Let that sentence settle into your brain for a minute. Really marinate it. Really think about what they're saying there. They would rather we remain addicted to medication for the rest of our lives than remain fat. Strike anyone else as weird? Often I have found when a doctor is talking to you about weight loss, it's because weight loss is probably one of the more manageable, more controllable things that people can do to overcome symptoms of an illness rather than be put on a medication. If you don't want your doctor to talk to you about losing weight, but you also don't want them to push medication because they would rather you be addicted to that medication, like what are you expecting them to do for you? Like, What are the other options? That's what I mean when I'm talking about the idea as being half-baked. Like, where do we go from here? What is the solution? The problem is that there isn't a solution, and they're not arguing with any logic, and they make it clear every time they spew these random statements. Another example of some of the fat acceptance movement and Fat Doctor UK's outrageousness are in the clip that I'll show here.
Not only have I chosen to remain fat and happy instead of thin and miserable, but I also don't care if it puts me at high risk of heart disease and diabetes. I'd actually rather get diabetes than be miserable. Can you believe it?
Where they say, I'd rather get diabetes than be miserable. Implying that they would rather have diabetes than be miserable on a weight loss journey on a diet. Do they know what it's like to have diabetes? I'm going to say no. I know people, friends and family, who have type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and it is not fun for either of them. It's very expensive. They have to consistently watch what they eat, so guess what? You're still going to be focused on your food intake. They have to prick their fingers to check their blood. They have to take insulin, which again is a medication that you will have to take for the rest of your life. I actually worked with someone, an older woman, whose husband had diabetes. He had to get a toe removed. He had to get his foot removed. And within 2 months, he passed away. And she was left devastated. Absolutely devastated. So what the hell do you mean when you say you would rather live with diabetes than be miserable? I would really just love a clarification on that. Also, an argument that fat acceptance makes a lot. I haven't specifically heard Dr. Asher refer to this, but I have heard fat acceptance folks say that it is a privilege to have a thin body. Eating healthy is very expensive. Do you know how expensive insulin is? If you don't, where do you live? Under a rock? Having diabetes is also expensive. Dr. Asher debated another weight loss professional on a British TV show, and they actually had a quote talking about how your weight is a direct result of your privilege. Again, they unpacked some of that, but not all of that. I understand the connection between being overweight and privilege. I do. There's a lot of nuance that goes into food deserts, Black and brown communities being underfunded. It's a systemic issue. It is. And I understand that. But the cognitive dissonance that it takes to talk about being overweight and how it's a privilege, while not acknowledging how much money you are spending on food, how much you are buying into capitalism to maintain your overweight body, is a disservice. It's a disservice to anyone you're talking to, anyone you're treating, anyone you think you're helping, because the truth is, you're not. Later in this debate with this other professional, they say health is not physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. The problem with that statement is that the physical is one part of a whole. That's what I mean when I'm saying they're lacking. It's like they put the full stop in the middle of the sentence instead of completing it. It's like an incomplete sentence, an incomplete thought. It lacks critical thinking, because if they went one step further, the argument would be, correct, my weight is not everything. It is not the sole determining factor of my worth. It is not the sole determining factor of my health. It is not my personality. My weight is not who I am. What my weight is one part of me. It's like they stop a little too early. They just like get to the midpoint and they're like, you know what? I'm done with this sentence. It's like millennials and their weird half words. It's so interesting to me how these folks constantly contradict themselves without even realizing it. And it's, once you're out of it and you realize that you were also doing that, it does make you reconsider your thought processes, how you're getting to the conclusions you're getting to, if you're using appropriate critical thinking. Because the truth is, a lot of times when I'm listening to these folks and when I think about the things that I used to say, it's almost like, do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? Like, are you allowing time for your brain to comprehend the words that you're spewing? Because if you were, I think you'd slow it down just a little bit. Okay, so I feel like by this point, we all know that Dr. Asher Laramie is a little cuckoo banana pants. My real issue with Dr. Asher is that they're so dishonest. In their original blog posts, in their original weight loss social media, they specifically said, I wanted to be a famous weight loss doctor. Famous weight loss doctor. Let that sink in. They had a bad experience. Then they decided, after someone reached out to them, to join this movement, this community. On their blog now, it says they don't want to be famous. And let's just talk about their business model. If you go to their blog, they sell different webinar programs where they walk people through and talk to them about varying topics. Each webinar on their site, they ask for about $5 to $25 per webinar, per replay. And I said dollars, it's not in American, obviously. It's in euros on the website. And I am too lazy to do the conversion, so I'll probably, editing Sam, put it here. For someone who doesn't want to be famous, isn't trying to co-opt the movement, it's very, very interesting to see the way that they're selling themselves, selling this program, selling their podcast, selling themselves to speaking events. Seems like the opposite of what you would want if you were trying not to be famous. And listen, I have no problem with people wanting to be famous, with people doing what they're going to do. I mean, there are crazy banana pants celebrities everywhere. I mean, it's what celebrities do, honestly. It's what influencers do. Nobody is surprised. But at least be honest about it. Like, what's the purpose of lying about it? It would be like me coming on this channel and saying I don't make videos to make money off the channel. I enjoy making videos, I enjoy editing, I enjoy teaching myself new techniques, but it's nice to make money off of the channel for the work that I'm putting in. Just be honest about it. The other thing I just cannot stand is knowing that there are vulnerable people on the other side of Dr. Asher's social media, webinars, blog posts, who are receiving their harmful misinformation. At some point in these folks' lives, they're going to feel the effects of their weight that they have ignored at the behest of this doctor. Because having the word doctor in front of your name automatically makes you an authority. My final problem with Dr. Asher is just what I said earlier. Their arguments make absolutely no sense. And when they present factual information, they often do not cite sources. They do not cite articles. They will say there's no research relating to, etc., etc. But the problem is the burden of proof of what they're saying is on them. And they will often say, well, I've seen the studies, but I don't have time to pull it for you right now. Or I don't have time to do this right now. Or I don't have, well, then don't say it. If you can't take the 2 minutes it takes to cite your source, then don't say it. It's interesting to me that this community was so up in arms about misinformation, hated everything being called fake news, and here we are doing the same shit. We're not fact-checking anything, we're not citing our sources, we're not doing any of the things that would make us credible. And that is my point. You cannot be credible just because you have those letters after your name. Because the truth is, we already know, doesn't matter who went to school, who went to med school, who did this, who did that. There are professionals that cherry pick their information. I do hate that there are people on the other side of this misinformation who are going to be hurt, who are going to see the negative impacts of their weight and maybe have negative health outcomes because they believed this person online that they thought was trustworthy. I couldn't do it. I don't know how influencers, how folks like this, who took an oath, mind you, to protect people, feel like this is what they should do. Because again, their arguments do not make sense. They don't make logical sense, and they're just punching in the dark. 95% of diets fail. Diets are the greatest predictor of weight gain because people yo-yo diet. Okay, great. Finish the freaking sentence and tell people that instead of going on one of those fad diets, let's propose some solutions. Doctors need to be actually trained to not point people to fad diets. Dietitians need to be reasonably trained to not push people toward fad diets. Doctors need to refer people to psychologists when it's very clear that they're dealing with something mentally, which most fat folks are. Like, just finish the thought. If you find yourself in a vulnerable state or you are having health issues related to your weight and you don't know what to do about it, go and talk to some professionals and just remember that your weight is one part of you. It is not all of you. It doesn't define you. And again, when people like Dr. Asher say those things, they're not incorrect. It's the crazy rhetoric that's thrown behind it without critical thinking that will lead you down a bad path. I don't want anyone to follow that path. I don't even want Dr. Asher to follow that path. The fact that they have makes me very sad. And like I mentioned, Dr. Asher Laramie is not the only cuckoo banana pants doctor. Almost every community has doctors like this, which is why there will be a series about toxic doctors. They just happen to be the first one because I just can't with the misinformation. And honestly, because of the content I've been consuming, they pop up most frequently in my feed. Oh, but trust me, the other communities that I have been a part of, as long as I have been online, I have seen other toxic doctors. So that will definitely be coming out. For me, making this video was about calling out the bad behavior and hopefully helping other people who were like me, who might have fallen into this trap because there's a doctor that supports it. Stay tuned for the next episode of Toxic Doctors. It'll be coming probably in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye!